Hi everybody, this is Paul Gerard. I'm a student loan consultant working with the American Podiatric Medical Association and the Young Physicians Institute. And this very important module number 2 is on income-driven repayment plans known as IDRs. Now, as you know from module number 1, when your loans come due, you have two different categories of repayment plans to choose from for your federal student loans: time-driven and income-driven repayment plans. And a reminder, the time-driven plans such as the standard 10-year and extended 25-year, these are set up so that they are not based on income, and at the end of the term, if you make the minimum payments, you will be debt-free. But if you cannot afford repayment under a time-driven repayment plan, that's when you consider the income-driven repayment plans such as income-based repayment known as IBR, pay-as-you-earn known as pay, and the newest version called revised pay-as-you-earn or repay. This is where payments are based on income and family size, and the payments change annually. We're going to look in detail at income-driven repayment plans in this module. Now, income-driven repayment plans are designed for highly indebted borrowers who cannot afford repayment under other plans, most notably the standard 10-year plan. And think about this. The easy way to look at this is you're likely going to need an income-driven repayment plan if you have a substantial gap between your federal debt and your income, and that is obviously the case for many podiatric medical residents when you're making a stipend and you just graduated from podiatric medical school with substantial debt. So that's who the income-driven repayment plans are designed for. Now, with income-driven repayment plans, the payments change on an annual basis, and they are based on your income and your family size. This is the major difference between income-driven repayment plans and the time-driven repayment plans. You have to renew every year. It's called recertification, and your loan servicer should notify you 30 to 60 to 90 days prior to the end of the 12-month period that it's time to renew your repayment amount. And this is not a deadline to miss, because if you miss this deadline, your monthly payments can jump dramatically. The theory is that as your income goes up, your monthly payments with an IDR will go up, and they will approach eventually what you would have paid under a standard 10-year repayment plan. If you're going to use an income-driven repayment plan, consider using the one with the lowest calculated payment amount, because you can always overpay with no penalty. And if you happen to be trying to qualify for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which we cover in Module 3, you want the lowest possible payment you can get to help maximize the potential forgiveness amount under the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Now, there are clearly advantages and disadvantages to the use of income-driven repayment plans. The biggest advantage is clearly a more manageable monthly payment. If you cannot afford repayment under a standard 10-year or extended 25-year plan, an IDR should help you. The use of IDRs can also lead to the forgiveness of your student loan debt after a designated period of time, or perhaps through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. And since an IDR is a required payment, this can also help you build your credit. You may know that about 35% of your credit score comes from the timely repayment of obligations, including student loans. So these are some advantages to the use of an income-driven repayment plan. But there are also some disadvantages to the use of income-driven repayment plans. Perhaps the most important one to take note of is that if there is a big gap between your federal debt and your income, and this is likely the case during residency, many times the payments are so low that they do not even cover the interest on the loan. That's called negative amortization. You're making payments and your debt balance is actually going up. So that's a huge disadvantage, especially in residency programs. Also, budgeting can be a challenge because the payments change on an annual basis. So there are both advantages and disadvantages to the use of income-driven repayment plans. Now, this is a comparison chart of income-based repayment known as IBR pay-as-you-earn known as pay, and revised pay-as-you-earn known as repay. And you can print this out on our homepage, pgpresents.com. You'll notice immediately that IBR is the older of the plans. It started in 2009. There are a lot of differences here, but we simply want to highlight several for you. First of all, look at the payment calculation amount. With IBR, it's 15% of discretionary income each month, compared with 10% of discretionary income for pay and repay. So if you're looking for the plan with the lowest calculated monthly payment, in all likelihood you will find it with pay-as-you-earn or revised pay-as-you-earn. However, notice that both with IBR and pay, even if your salary goes through the roof, you are never required to pay anything higher than what you would have paid under the original standard 10-year amount. This simply means that if your salary goes through the roof, you never have to pay more than you would have if you had chosen the standard 10-year plan right out of the gate instead of choosing IBR or pay. That's a nice provision that some people like that limits their payment amount at the original standard 10-year amount. There's no such payment cap with revised pay-as-you-earn. Look at the repayment term, 25 years for IBR, 20 for pay, and 25 with repay. This simply means that that's how long you have to retire the debt under these programs, and anything left after the 25-year mark under IBR and repay or 20 years under pay will be forgiven, but you do have to claim that amount as taxable income on a tax return. Look at spousal income. Under all three plans, if you're married filing a joint return, spousal income is included in the calculation. But if you're married filing separately, spousal income is not counted with IBR and pay. Finally, look at the interest subsidy on unsubsidized loans. The newest plan, Repay, has a unique provision that says anytime that the interest due each month is higher than the calculated repay amount, the government will cut it in half by 50%. In other words, they will slow down how fast your debt grows. Easy example. Suppose the interest that's due each month is $1,000 and your repay amount that's due is $300. That's a $700 difference. That's called negative amortization. With repay, the government will increase your debt not by $700 a month, but by $350 a month. They will slow down how fast your debt is growing under repay anytime the interest due is higher than the calculated repay amount. Now, if you use an income-driven repayment plan to repay your federal loans, one of three things is going to happen. The debt's going to be forgiven with the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program after 120 eligible payments, or the debt will be retired prior to the end of the term, 20 years with pay, 25 years with IBR or repay, or you're not going to get the debt repaid, you're not going to have the debt forgiven with PSLF, and you're still going to owe at the end of the term, at which case the debt will be forgiven but subject to tax. So once again, one of three things will happen with IDR. PSLF, you pay the debt off, or the debt is forgiven at the end of the term. Now, a few takeaways as we wrap up this module on income-driven repayment plans. IDRs provide for affordable payments, but don't assume you need them. Always run the repayment numbers under the standard 10-year and extended 25-year plans to see if you can afford those, and then move to or back into the use of IDRs if you need to. Don't forget that the payments change every year, and do not miss the recertification deadline. Otherwise, your payments can jump dramatically. Always compare the monthly payment with an IDR against the standard 10-year payment amount. Many residents, many podiatric medical residents are using IDRs and overpaying. Just because you use an IDR doesn't mean you're trying to qualify for forgiveness. It simply means you can't afford repayment under the other plans. Always work closely with your loan servicer to apply for IDRs. They likely have a link on their site straight to the online application, which is at studentloans.gov, and you can switch repayment plans if you need to. Perhaps you started with a 10-year or 25-year plan and you now need to move to an income-driven repayment plan. You can do that. Maybe you started with IBR, and after listening to this module, you're interested in moving to pay or repay. Work with your loan servicer. You can switch repayment plans. So some important takeaways on income-driven repayment plans. Now, there's some great resources to help you with income-driven repayment plans. You've seen the MedLoans Organizer and Calculator reference before. This calculator from the AAMC allows you to project repayment and forgiveness amounts with the income-driven repayment plans. And it lets you tailor the repayment amounts to your career plans as a podiatrist. Studentloans.gov, the repayment estimator, lets you estimate the initial payment amounts with all the income plans based on changes you may have in income and family size. So two very important resources for you. This is the end of module number 2.